Hi, I'm Pepper, and this is the Hey Girl podcast. And today you're going to be speaking with my mom today. So we're going to do it really fun.
Hey girls, and welcome to another episode of the Hey Girl podcast. I'm your host, Bethany Needham, and I'm excited to bring to you one of my new friends, Ashlee Hogue. I met Ashlee Hogue through my husband, and we'll talk more about how we got to know each other meeting at Chick-fil-A, where all great friendships begin. But before I get to that, I want to first of all update you. I'm riding solo today. I don't have my girl Jenn with me, but if you are not already following the story of Jenn and her son Charlie, his recent diagnosis with cancer, then I will encourage you to sign up, go on their Facebook page to pray for Sir Charles. We'll put a link in our show notes so you can go ahead there if you are not already connected to this page. But if you are, then you know there's a lot going on right now for them. And so Jenn is kind of off the grid for the next little while, but she'll be back in a couple of weeks. We got a lot of interviews lined up. We are really excited about some of the stories we're going to get to bring to you. And we really have you guys to thank for it. I mean, Jenn and I went into this and it was definitely a dream of ours. We had no idea what God would have in store for us, but he has just blown it out of the water. It's crazy, absolutely crazy, the things that he's doing and the doors that have been open, women that we're getting to meet. And still one of our favorite parts by far is just hearing these stories. And then the fact that we get to share them with you is honestly a gift for us as much probably as it is for you. And we love it. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for those of you who have been sharing. Thanks for those who've been getting in on sending reviews. If you haven't heard, we just kicked off this whole competition of those of you who are sending in your reviews, putting them on iTunes. It helps us to get the name of our podcast out there to reach more listeners. And so because of that, by September 1st, we have promised that we're going to choose one favorite, maybe two, and we're going to send a Hey Girl mug out to whomever that listener is. And I have to say, the reviews I was reading today, absolutely loving them. So girls, keep them coming. Dudes, if you're out there and you are listening, I'm going to add on to this competition. We actually have a little something special just for our guy listeners because we know you exist. And so if you want to get in on the action, maybe you don't want a Hey Girl mug, maybe you want something special that represents more of your masculine qualities. I'm not going to give it away. I'm just saying we got a little something we'd love to mail to you. So get in the competition, put a review, let us know if you're a dude. We got something for you. We'll pick a favorite. We'll send out a guy gift, send out a girl gift. Hopefully you guys can enjoy those. And for those of you who are following the Facebook page or keeping up with Jenn, I definitely ask you to continue to pray over their family, for Jenn, Ben, for little Charlie, and just throughout this whole journey, we continue to lift them in prayer. So thank you for that. I have an apology to make out the gate as we get ready to go into this next interview. I'm about to introduce you to a brand new friend of mine, love her to death, but I totally did a terrible job recording when we did this interview, and so I want to own up front that the sound quality on this is not great, and I have since learned, thanks to the producer, that it is not a good idea to record podcast interviews in wind tunnels when you're soft-spoken, aka my bedroom with the air conditioning running, because it was 1,000,000 trillion degrees when we were doing the interview. But in case you're wondering, even though you have terrible sound quality, Ashlee and I were very comfortable in our air-conditioned room while we had this conversation, which is probably why it's an amazing conversation. But I apologize. The sound quality is terrible. That's totally my fault. I won't do it again, I promise. And I really hope that as you listen to this next story, as you get to know Ashlee, get to know her story, that you will enjoy it, be inspired and encouraged as much as I was. I've not done this before, but I'm just going to throw it out there in case we of moms that listen to this in your car, dropping your kids off at school or whatnot, we do touch on some pretty tough topics in regards to abuse. And so I just want to throw it out there, if you have little ears that are listening in, that this might not be the best episode for that commute, but it's absolutely an episode worth listening to. And so maybe if you normally listen to it in the minivan, you wait until you're on a walk and you can put your earbuds in, or somewhere where there aren't tiny little listening ears. And for now, I would like to leave you with this episode. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll chat at the end.
All right, ladies, so I am here with my new friend, Ashlee Hogue. So excited to introduce her to you. Do you want to say hi to us?
Hello, everyone. This is Ashlee.
Yeah, and Ashlee, I got to meet through my husband. I think our husbands were friends, and then it was dinner, right? You guys came over. I feel like I meet a lot of people through my husband knowing someone, and then introducing each other wife. That's Jenn and I, my co-host. That's our story. Yeah, Andy's a really good matchmaker of friends. I've decided that's a gift of his.
We met at Chick-fil-A.
Yes, where all Christians meet.
Because
all
when she
relationships begin
and
at
just
Chick-fil-A.
Yes, there's very few up here we've seen.
There was just this incredible sense in that room.
We're getting more.
Like
friendship
to a
so
level. And
there's hope for us. Yeah, Jesus is coming to New England people in the form of chicken sandwiches.
Yes, I believe it.
Towards him, and to be able to
so Ashlee, you have not been in New England a whole long time, so there is a good chance that there will be a lot of listeners who don't know who you are, don't know your story. So maybe you could take a few minutes as we start and just introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from.
So I'm from Oklahoma. I wasn't born there. I was born in Idaho. Idaho Falls, but I lived there for just a few short weeks, and then moved to Texas just for a few short weeks again, and then moved to Oklahoma. That's where my parents got relocated.
Okay, you only lived places 2 weeks.
2 weeks, definitely. I guess that memory is so short, and my mom just explains it so fast. But I was born in Idaho, and my dad found a job in Texas. So we moved down there because that's where my grandparents lived.
Okay.
And so we moved down there, and I don't think that job was a long-term job for him. It didn't seem like.
So he wasn't military or anything?
No.
Okay.
No, he was a car salesman.
Oh.
Yes. I think he just found a better-paying job in Oklahoma, and it was within driving distance from my grandparents. So we were like, sure, we'll do it. So we moved to Oklahoma not too long after that. But raised in Oklahoma, not born, raised in Oklahoma, and I have an older brother. He's about 4 years older than me. His name's Ryan.
Okay.
And he still lives in Oklahoma City.
Grew up in Oklahoma. Your dad's a car salesman. What's your mom up to?
Well, that's my biological dad. So he was a car salesman, but my parents got a divorce not too long after. I think I was about 4 years old. They got a divorce. So I was pretty young. My mom's a nurse, though, and she's been a nurse as long as I can remember.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's been a nurse for maybe 25 years at this point. Long time.
Yeah, I guess so. So a nurse, was she a single mom then for a while?
Yeah.
And nurses work crazy hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've just now, as I've gotten older and become a parent, started realizing and understanding all that she's went through.
Wow.
And she started out, being a night shift nurse. So I think when I was little, she worked the night so she could be with us during the day, which I'm sure was difficult.
I was about to say, so
like
basically she's
sleep.
up all night and up all day.
So I'm like, when did you sleep?
So your mom is Wonder Woman.
She is.
Congratulations on our new movie.
Yes. That's true.
Great reviews.
Yeah. Yes, she's the star of that one.
Tell us a little bit about your family right now, and then maybe you could build it. How did you meet your husband? How did you end up with your kids? And I'm so excited for you to talk about because they're so cute.
Thank you. Yeah, so I became a mom. Pepper, my daughter, she's going to be 4 in July. So I became a mom. I'm 25, so 20, shortly after 21.
Yeah.
So really young for me.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that young. Me and Jared got married a year before that, or a year and a half before that. So everything happens in July for our family. So my birthday happened, and then we got married 3 days after I turned 20. And then a year and a half later got pregnant with Pepper, and that name in itself describes her. She's very fun and sassy and very literal personality.
That was going to be my question. Where does the name Pepper come from?
Everyone asks that, and we get, is it from Iron Man, the Pepper Potts lady? And we're like, no. Honestly, it came up, we were discussing Penelope being an option. And
I love that name too.
We do. Jared loves it. I wasn't so fond of it. He was like mentioning, oh, maybe Pepper, that, what do you think of that compared to Penelope? I'm like, that's even worse. I cannot imagine naming my kid Pepper. And I told my mom about it, and she was like, you mean Piper, right? Like, that's a new name going around. And I said, no, not Piper, Pepper, like salt and pepper. And so, we weren't really gung-ho about it until we literally birthed her, and I was like, and
it was
so,
nice of you to give him credit.
I know, right? Give him something. But we gave her that name, and I'm so glad we did, because I love it. Yeah.
It's a really cute name.
Thank you.
I actually think I love it more that it was completely random. Like, Penelope Pepper?
Pepper, yes. That'll work.
That's a nice seasoning. Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yes. And then I have a son. He just turned 1 in March, and his name's Cash.
So same question, though.
How do we get the name Cash?
Yeah.
Well, his first name's Elijah, and his middle name's Cash.
Okay.
And we were going to name him Truett Cash after the founder of Chick-fil-A, Truett Cathy. Because we love Chick-fil-A so much.
What? That's amazing.
Yes. But we didn't go with Truett. We felt like it was, I don't know, it didn't really match the Pepper, we felt. So we went with Elijah. And honestly, when we first had him, everyone pronounced it wrong. Elijah, like never Elijah.
Huh.
And so I just felt like I had to keep telling people, and I don't like doing that. Yes. So we went with Cash's middle name, and we just stuck with it.
I love that.
Yeah.
The names suit them. They're perfect. So
I'm glad.
Oh.
It usually works out that way. You always are nervous as a parent, like, what should I name my child? It's their lifelong name.
Yeah.
But
Seriously.
it usually works out for them.
It's true. My daughter has a theory on this. This is
really?
such a rabbit trail, but just so you know, my daughter's Mercy, and she explained it to me one day that she finally realized why all babies look the same when they're born, because that's her theory, that all newborns look exactly the same.
Yeah.
And she's like, they look that way because they're waiting for their parents to give them a name so they know what they're supposed to look like. And so her theory is that every baby grows into whatever name you give them, and it just suits them.
That.
So I was like, all right, we'll go with that.
Yeah, it's a good theory. She might be onto something.
Of course, she's also the kid that tells me that she doesn't like her name. So I don't
really
know. I don't know how to take that.
Yeah.
So how long have you been married now?
It'll be in July. It'll be 6 years.
6 years. And what has the last 6 years looked like for you guys?
Wow. Me and Jared talk about that sometimes. We're like, does it seem like forever? And sometimes it does seem like a long time. And then some days it seems real short. Like, we have so many things we want to accomplish, So I guess when we first got married, we met at the church. I interned there at Church on the Move, and he worked at Church on the Move at the time. And we met there. And then we got married shortly after. I think we knew each other probably maybe like a year and a half, 2 years before we got married. After we got married, I'm trying to think exactly. Oh, I was still going to school at the time because I was young, like 20.
I was going to be like high school?
Right. No, college. I was going to college.
Where'd you go to school?
I started out at TCC. It's the Tulsa Community College there.
Okay.
For 2 years. And then after my internship at Church on the Move at their youth group, I interned there for a year. And then I started going to that college just to get like your associates in general ed studies. And then went to NSU, Northeastern State University, for my 3rd year. And I didn't finish since I had Pepper. So I had 1 more year left for my bachelor's.
Okay. Yeah. So you were going to this church. You and your husband met there. Mm-hmm. You were working there from the beginning, or just attending when you met him?
I was interning.
Okay.
At the time, the interns did get paid, but it was like not like you weren't considered staff member. You were an intern.
Gotcha.
And then they could hire you on after a year or 2 years.
What did you intern in? Student ministry?
And youth ministry. Yeah, student ministry.
Do you like youth ministry?
Yes, I love it.
I love that.
When people say, like, where are you most comfortable serving? Youth ministry is where I'm comfortable serving.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have a special place in my heart for
Yes.
youth ministry, so I love it. Okay, so you are married now 6 years. You guys met at the church. He was on staff. Did you ever go on staff, or did you do intern and then?
I didn't.
So only he was on staff.
Right.
But you got married during that time, right?
We actually we met there, and then I'm trying to think here. So since I was considered like in their, like they called it, I guess, young adult ministries at the time.
Gotcha.
And so I was considered that I'd be like a student in there, and he wasn't overseeing it, but he helped the pastor with that ministry part. And so at the time, Jared had asked them if it was all right if we could date, since I was an intern, and was I considered not in the youth group, or was I considered like more of a staff member at the time?
And so there's rules against it, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And we weren't sure if I think there were underlying rules, so we weren't for sure. So he had talked to some people to make sure, his boss. And so at the time, his boss was his brother-in-law.
Oh.
So yeah, the people we moved out here with, yeah.
That can't create awkward dynamics.
Yeah. It was so interesting thinking back about this. But so we started, I guess, dating for like a month, you could call it, like where you just start to get to know somebody.
Yeah.
But then I think at the time, what would you call them? Like our pastors, our bosses talked more about it and decided it wasn't a good idea. And so they said, we'd like you guys not to date anymore, kind of diffuse it. And so we were like, okay, sure.
Oh.
And so we went our separate ways.
Were you really bad daters? Is that
apparently? Yes.
Oh, that's okay. So just, you don't have to talk about it, but was that hard though?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are interested in someone, and then basically the powers that be are like, yeah, we don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it was tough because we still worked together, and we, we're like, okay, they have the best in mind, so let's try to just put this aside and try to let it be. But so it was really hard. It was difficult, and Jared, we had talked more about it, and we did continue to talk, and we worked together, so we talked. And so he went and talked with his boss, and they said, well, if you're going to still decide to do that, then you need to make a decision if you're going to still work here or leave and still talk with her. And so at the time, he decided to leave. And so that's how we both kind of found our separate ways. He didn't work there anymore, and then they asked, I think my internship just ended at that point. And so they asked me not to come back. And Jared had to find a different job, and he had worked there for a while. He had something like he cleaned cars on the side. It was called Shine on a Dime.
Okay.
He detailed cars. And so he had that on the side with working at the church.
Okay.
And so he went to do that full time after this happened, and they asked him to leave if we were going to continue to talk and want to pursue a relationship with each other.
So that's hard, young in ministry, and dealing with that kind of emotion. And I'm assuming through, even when they were asking you not to talk, you still liked each other.
Yeah.
How is it just to walk through that as kind of, if you're an intern, I'm assuming one of your first ministry experiences. Did you feel like that at all was discouraging as a young person in ministry? Or, I don't know, maybe it was just, I knew they were doing what they needed to do, and we did what we needed to do, and no hard feelings. We just kind of went our own way. Yeah,
that's a good question. I think obviously going through it, it was kind of disappointing. I guess going through at that time, I did always stand on, like, Romans 8:28, like, all things will work out. And at the time, too, it was always whoever's powers that be, like, you just kind of go with it.
Yeah.
And you don't really push back. And so they made the decision, so I was like, all right, maybe that's what was supposed to happen. I'll just move on. And I thought I would be there forever, like, intern, get a job, work at church, like work there for a while. So I guess that was disappointing in finding what was my next step, and that's when I decided to go to college, because actually at the time I wasn't going to college.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went back to school.
Right.
Yeah. And how long before you guys ended up getting married?
So I think it would have been the year after.
A year after. I was like, the next July. That's
no, it wasn't the July. A few months after.
You're like, whatever. Let's just get married.
Yes, a lot happened in that year. So we both lost our jobs or my internship, and then right soon after that, my brother got married in May, and then in June, right after that, so at the time, my mom got remarried.
Okay. To
my stepdad when I was like 6. So they were married for maybe like 10 to 12 years at this point.
Wow.
And then in June is when I came out about that my stepdad had sexually abused me for like 8 years. And so like during this time, I felt like right when I got let go, and then I don't know, maybe I feel like now it all worked together. Definitely God always works it together. But I don't know if that was like a step for me when I started dating Jared. He was the first person that was like, I will not marry you unless you work this out, or you need to tell somebody about it, like someone that will do something about it. Or go see a counselor, basically, like to make sure you're doing all right,
Yeah.
And so he was the first person that told me that I had to do that. And so I went to the church I was going at the time.
Yeah.
To ask for help. So even though it was disappointing I got let go, I still went back to them and was like, can you help me through this? And they were like, yes. And
so you still had a safe place.
Yeah.
There. Yeah,
definitely.
So that's a big one.
Yes. Just kind of throw that out there.
No, I honestly appreciate that's not an easy thing to share about, but was Jared the first person that you had really shared that with, or just the first person that came back and said, okay, we need to deal with this?
He wasn't the first person I shared it with, but he was the first person that said, let's deal with it. There's one other person I shared it with before, and we were really young, and it was a girlfriend of mine, and so maybe she just wasn't sure like how to deal with it.
Didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So this had gone on for 10 years?
Yeah, so I was almost 19, I guess, when I came out about it, and it started happening when I was right before a teenager, like 11.
And your mom, I'm assuming,
had no idea. No, not until I told, our church has, counselors, or I guess I was associate pastor at the time, and I had scheduled an appointment, and at the time they asked you, like, fill out a paper and tell some reasons why. And everyone who was around, I told them I was just going to get counseling with the situation with Jared. We had both got let go, but truly I wrote down being molested and sexually abused by my stepdad. And so when I sent it in, they called to schedule an appointment like right away. And so when I went in for my counseling session, he was like, you have to tell your mom today. Like, you have to go talk to her. And I was just like, how? Like, how do you say that? I've obviously thought about it a million times. Like, people that have gone through it, I know they've thought those things a million times. And it's just like, how? And so I left, and I actually found a job at the time. So I went back and went to my job. And I had got a phone call later from the pastor, and he was like, actually, we're just going to have you come back in, and we're going to call your mom back in here too, and we'll just all talk to her about it. And that was so relieving. Yeah.
So you didn't have to go into it by yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Because I guess they, at the time, they thought it would be... I told, this is a lot coming out.
No, it's...
But I had told my stepdad, Mike, that I was going to counseling for it. So I was one of those people that, like, I wanted to give him ample opportunities to come forward. I don't know what people may think of that, but all the time I was like, this is your problem. This is your fault. Like, you need to go get help. But all the time he would push it back on me. And so finally I was like, I'm drawing the line. I'm going to get help. And I said, you can come with me. But he said, no, it's your problem. You need to go.
So you confronted him on this?
Several times.
Wow.
Yeah, several
And how
times.
did he handle was the abuse still going on when you confronted him?
It was on and off. Like, it wasn't like consistently.
Right.
Like, maybe an episode would happen and then maybe a few months later another one. But it was a lot of emotional abuse too.
Yeah.
And making me feel guilty for things I shouldn't be. But when I would confront him about it, it was always, I think, a defense mechanism of, like, insecurity. Like, this isn't my problem. I'm not... Because I can remember specifically a time when I did say it, he said, this is so normal because step-parents deal with this all the time, abusing their stepchildren. You see it all the time in the news.
Oh.
And that was a huge red flag for me that, like, this is not common, it's not normal, and I'm
almost
not...
making it okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. I said, and it's not okay, and I remember just shutting my door on his face. So there were several times, like, we would talk about it, which seems odd thinking we would talk about it, but it did come up, and I think that's why my pastor was like, I don't think it's safe for you to go back home when he knows you came to visit us. And then they thought the same for my mom, like, what would he maybe do to her? So they brought her in to let her know everything, let her decide if she wanted to stay married to him or not. And
so how did that meeting go with I'm just my mom harness, like, entering that room? How did that go for you and for your mom?
Yeah. You know, I wish my mom was sitting next to me. I know she would love to tell her story about this to you. You know, I'm thinking about it, and so they called me back in right after work. I remember when my pastor called me, it was like 5 o'clock, and Jared actually got a job across the street from my job. It was really neat how this all worked out, and I remember pulling out, and I pulled over there, and I said, they called me back. I have to go back today, and he was like, well, go right away. I'm sure they want to help you with something. They didn't actually tell me that my mom was coming in at the time when they called me.
Oh, they just called you back in.
And said to go back. And so I got up there, and they were like, we're actually going to have your mom come up here. We think it would be best to tell her when she's, like, with us and not with your dad, Mike. And I called him my dad at the time because he had been married for so long to my mom. At the time, I was in the office, and they said, when your mom comes in, we want you to tell her what went on and what's been going on. And I just said again, how? Like, I can't muster up the words to say, like, what's been going on. And so the pastor was like, okay, then you stay in here. And at the time, they called a police officer in to report everything that happened, since I was a minor when it happened. And so he said, just finish telling the police officer what happened, and then when your mom gets here, I'll go talk to her in the other room, and then we'll bring you together. And I was, like, so relieved. So still to this day, I don't think I ever asked my mom what happened when her and the pastor talked about it.
Before she came in with you.
Before she came in. But we were sitting at a table kind of like this, a long conference room table, and I was sitting on one side, and they opened the door, and she came in, and she was just weeping. It makes me cry thinking about it. And she, like,
fell. I don't even know your mom.
She fell down to her knees, and she reached over and grabbed me and hugged me so hard. And it's just like a picture, I think, of Jesus, like when people come up to him with these, like, burdens, and he just reaches out their arms. Like, I felt like that's what my mom did to me, like, these years of, like, wondering, how would I tell her? Would she be accepting? Because you always hear some moms that aren't accepting of or they side with the dad or the stepdad, and I was so fearful that she would want to stay married to him, and I'd go through the abuse again over and over, and I felt better not telling her, because I felt like that's easier than telling her and us staying the same way. Yeah. When she reached down to hug me, I said, I'm so sorry that this is happening to you. And she said, how are you sorry to me? She said, I'm sorry this has ever happened to you. If I could turn back in time and make this all go away, I would. And from that point on, I was like, my relationship with my mom, like, we have been so close. And I felt like God has just used that to bring us so close together, because before that we didn't have much relationship, and I know it's because of my stepdad that was just in the middle, creating some type of bind between me and my mom. And once he was out of the picture, it was like finally the two pillars, we can stand together. And so to this day, I'm so grateful she decided to. She said from that day forward, she didn't go back home, so she never got to see him, Mike again, her husband at the time. And she decided to divorce him and went through a lot of. It took longer for her divorce trial than it did with my own abuse trial. Of all the assets that they had. They owned a company together. They had been married for almost 12 years, and they had rental properties together. And so there were so many things for her that she had to go through, and I'm so grateful that she decided to do that for me. Yeah. But she's like, it's not even an option. It's not a thought of going back. It's not. So that was so relieving.
That's incredible. I love your mom. I've never met her, but I love her.
Awesome. Her name's Alma.
Alma, we love you.
Yes. Love you, Mom.
So the trial, talk to me a little. I'm just right now feeling for women listening to this who have walked through this road or are where you were before you went to counseling, where this is something that they have had happened to them and maybe heard the words that you just said, and I'm like choked up thinking about it, but how many women hear that this is normal, this is your problem, but don't have the kind of courage, like your courage to speak up to your stepfather. I just think what an incredible God thing of courage to look him in the face and be like, no, actually, this is your problem. And I know that there are a lot of women who haven't been able to speak up for themselves and they've remained silent. And some of it is exactly what you just described. It's the fear of, what if I do say something and what I say makes no difference? Like that, it's almost easier to be quiet and than it is to have it affirmed what I already think, that this doesn't matter to anyone but me, and that no one's going to protect me. So what did it look like, as much as you're able to talk about it? You know, you reported it obviously to a police officer. What did that journey? You said that the court case, obviously your mom's divorce going simultaneously with that. That's a lot. But for you, what was that experience? Yeah,
looking back, after the police officer, I reported everything, because as a church, they have to report everything too. So that was the first step. But after that, the pastor who was counseling me said, you do have an option if you want to press charges against him or not. And my first thought was no. Like, why do I need to? It's kind of, I felt like, not in the past, but like he's not by me anymore, so I won't be harmed. And then he was like, that's fine, if that's your decision, I'll leave it at that. But just so you know, like, what if he did this what if he does to someone else and it's not on his record and people don't see it? And so I thought about, he's like, take time, think about it. And so I thought about it, and I was like, even if I had a daughter, I would want her, because at the time I didn't have Pepper. And I was like, I would want her protected, and if no one knew that this man was around her, who he was. So I decided, okay, I'll go through the trial, I'll press charges. And so, because even though it was someone who abused me, like, I still loved him. Like he was a dad to me, as much more of a dad to me than my biological dad was, because he was there, he provided for our family. There must have been at some point where he had turned, like that wasn't the guy that my mom married when I was younger. And my mom would say that to this day, like he had to have changed somehow. Obviously it was little pieces at a time. That was really hard to make the decision, because I did love him as a dad, and he's a person, I felt guilt thinking I'm the one ruining his life, I'm the one putting this on his record, but I had to just keep reminding myself, like, he made these decisions, he's the one that's putting this on his record, not me. And so going through the trials, we had to place a protective order at the beginning, because there were a couple of episodes when everything happened. He would call me several times, it sounded like he was taking pills and killing himself. like voicemails of him choking, and I don't know like what was going on. And so it was like devastating, you know, and for my mom too. Like that first week we didn't go back home. We went to visit my brother and went to go tell him what happened, and lived with him for a few days. Wow. Lived with some friends for a few days until we like changed our locks and he moved out, and then we went back home. But that whole transition period I think was harder for my mom than me, just because I had been preparing myself for how many years, thinking this day will happen one day, you know?
Yeah.
And my mom, her husband was gone like that. Like she made good money for herself, so that was okay, but just for a companion and someone to walk through life was just gone like that.
And the person she thought was married, like, it put a whole new lens on her whole life. Yeah. I can't imagine
I cannot
what
either.
she was walking through, but I can't imagine what you were walking through. But you moved back home. How long was the process of the trial before it finalized?
So it was June when I had reported, and then got a protective order, and then they wouldn't file a protective order for my mom. She filed one too, but they did grant one for me, a temporary one. I think it was like 3 or 4 months, and then we had to go back later to get a permanent one.
Okay.
So I went, and then I think there were a few trials, like October, September, where I had to go and present a victim statement. And at the time, they like gave me an attorney, like it was a state representative attorney. I believe God put each person in place for that. I even had like I forgot what they call them now, but like a victim helper. I forgot they have like a specific name.
Okay.
But it was a lady from my church I knew. So that was so awesome, and I felt so comfortable around her. And I knew she like wouldn't even like go tell other people at the church either. Like she was awesome and really helped me through it. And she knew everyone in the office that would help me if I ever got moved to another person. And then she told me that the attorney they assigned me to was awesome, and he really knew his stuff. And so then we like went to a trial, and I had to stand up in front of a judge and like read. I typed it out beforehand, but read everything that I had felt he put me through.
Right.
And then he was in the room too. And so then afterward they asked him to stand up and say things. And that was excruciating to like be in the same room.
Like my stomach is in knots.
Yes. That was excruciating to just hear. What he had to say was an apology, but it wasn't an apology at the same time.
Yeah.
Then right after that, the judge found him guilty and put handcuffs around him and took him off after that point. That was 6 months later, so in December. It was pretty quickly. Honestly, I thought it would have gone slower from June to December. And then December was when they said they would give him, I think he had 4 years in prison and then 6 years on probation. And then I guess he got out a little earlier because I guess if you do like good deeds while in prison, you can get out sooner. So I think that they'd let you know whenever the person you're persecuted against gets out and everything. So they like sent me a message and everything.
And that message, how was that? Because where were you at in your life when he was released? Were you married at that point with?
Yes. So. That was December when he got in prison, and then 6 months later, Jared and I got married in July, or 7 months, I guess, later, more like 8. So when I got that message, I had Pepper. I think I just had her. And so that was a new thing for me, like, oh, well, I am a parent now. I have a daughter on the way. Right before we moved here, I actually saw him at a Home Depot in Tulsa.
Oh.
Yes, it was. And I had cash at the time too, so I had both of my children. I was so thankful. I went back after I had Pepper, so 3 years later after the incident, and got a permanent order for me and Pepper, and they actually granted it. I know protective orders, like they'll still try, but like I'm glad we have it if the situation ever arises like that.
Yeah.
And so we were both there, and thankfully he finally, like, he left. I saw him walk out the door of Home Depot, and I stayed. I'm not leaving. Like, I came in here. You're the one that has to leave.
So he saw you.
Yeah, we saw each other. We made eye contact. We were both at the paint counter, and I heard him tell the guy, I have got to go. I'll be back later to pick up my paints. And so I wanted to, like, put an umbrella over my children and say, never look at my kids, please. But, and at the same time, I wanted to, like, say, how are you? I know that sounds crazy, but I guess it's just, like, that tiny, like, human in me, like, or, like, compassion, like, are you still okay? Like,
I just think it's, man, I have so many emotions. It's hard to keep my brain straight. It's your dad. Like, and no matter what they do, it is, like you said, maybe a tiny bit of human. I think part of it is we're girls wired to our dads, and yeah, he did really dumb things and things he shouldn't have done, and they weren't your fault, they were his fault, but it never cut that connection. Like, at no point, it's almost infuriating as a daughter sometimes, like, why did none of this, like, end him being my dad? And it doesn't. So no, I think if anything, what you're describing is not only normal, but I feel like there's probably women listening who are just like, so I'm not the only one, like, because that's such a wrestling, like, you walk through it. Do I press charges? Like, I still love this person, but, and you made a really brave choice. You chose for other people, and something you could have been very much like, okay, I'm fine now. I don't need to worry. I can just like walk away from this. But even in that moment with everything you walked through, you said, I need to care for not just myself. I need to care for others. And
that's God for sure.
Absolutely. But so even thankful. That pain counter, I mean, God's stirring in your heart, like, this is hard. I both want to protect my children, but also reach out to you. And, just like the angst in my heart right now, I just feel that tugging. Yeah. So Ashlee, if you were sitting down with another woman who, whether this be their story, or think about a woman coming to you like you went to your husband at that time, what would be your encouragement to a young woman who has either walked through this and it's out in the open and people know that, but she's wrestling and trying to find her way, or maybe a woman who is asking the question, do I come forward? Do I say something? Are there any words that from your journey you would say, listen, looking back, this is what I would say to you? Yeah,
I definitely would say that it's worth it to try to go through it. And it will be hard, it will be painful, but I think it's worth it to try, to try to go through a trial if you are being abused, or I think it's definitely worth it to tell somebody else about it for sure. You are being abused. No lady or man deserves to be abused at all. And so it is scary thinking, like, who will listen? And maybe the first person you tell doesn't, which would be really hard, to go tell another person. But I guess I would just encourage, with all you have in you, like, just tell somebody, even if it's one person or two people, see if there's like a safe person, you can talk with, or someone that has been through it that you can talk with about. That I definitely would encourage, because I don't think I ever looked or tried to find someone that had been down my road before when I was going through this.
Yeah.
I don't think I met anybody at the time that I could be like, can you help me with this? I'm going through this.
Well, it's not something that people like to talk about.
That's true.
And I think that's why, I didn't know your story before we sat in front of these microphones, so I'm processing with the listeners, but I'm sitting here thinking, like, I just wish more people would have that kind of courage to stand up and say, this is part of my story. It's not who I am, but this is part of my journey, and the power of you sharing, like, it was worth it. Like, what you did was hard, but it was worth it. And I look at you, and we've just met recently, but I'm seeing, you know, however many years down the line, and you have your husband, and you have 2 beautiful children, and you're doing ministry, and you've picked up your family, and you've moved to Massachusetts of all places, but you love Jesus, and you're about his work, and with everything that you've gone through and those decisions you've made, I just look at your life, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, I just think it's beautiful how God has just redeemed so much of that. And then that you're willing, it's not even that you're like tucking it behind you, like, okay, let's just pretend that never happened and enjoy life as it is. Like, you're literally sitting in front of a microphone right now being like, listen, this is my story. This is who I am. This is part, and I want everything in this to bring God glory and point to him. And that's amazing.
Thanks. I'm excited. I mean, it's taken time. It's been like almost 6 years, but I definitely want to. I want others to know that God is redemptive, like you said, and he wants to bring everything full circle to help us. I'm so grateful, really, that I came forward. I really am.
Need tissues. And so let's come to just the today, where you're at in life. You're here in Massachusetts. I kind of hinted to it. Fast forward your life. What brought you here, and what are you guys up to now?
Jared's sister, her and her husband moved up here to start a church through ARC and Association of Related Churches, and they planted in Arlington, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And so they came up here about a year ago. We had, thought about it ever since they moved up here and prayed about it, and came and visited them about a few months before they launched, and we decided we wanted to go and help them plant a church. And so we said, all right, let's do this. So packed up all our stuff, and it was difficult for sure. My family's there, my mom and my brother. Jared has another brother there, and his family's within driving distance, like 8 hours from Oklahoma. And so leaving all that behind is very difficult. But seeing the bigger picture, like, we're going to go up to New England and tell others about God, was bigger in our mind. And so came here, and Jared left his job at Church on the Move. He was the kids director there. They were so awesome and gracious. They were like, that sounds great. We're going to push you forward. We'd love for you to go do that. We came here, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, and so I stay at home with my 2 kids, Pepper and Cash, and Jared works at CVS as store manager. And so that's been a transition for him, like finding just like for him, it's like a retail job and not really more of his passion, like what he's focusing his career on.
Right.
But on the weekends we get to do church, and so for him that's good. Like, we get to have somewhere to pour into.
I think it's a good testimony too of sometimes people imagine the idea of like, oh, we go into this place and we start this church and forget that process of building, like, incomes don't automatically come along with that. Like, so yeah, you're doing this incredible work and you're starting a church, but there's a lot of sacrifice in that. Your husband has to take a retail job because bills still have to be paid, and kind of that
more expensive than Oklahoma.
Yes, that is very true. But that tent maker kind of missional idea, we go and we work among the people, and like you said, we do church on the weekends, and I just think it's incredible all that you have sacrificed and been willing to, and the work that you guys are doing. So, and your kids, Pepper and Cash, you stay home with them. I am just telling our listeners now, I have decided I'm going to we're going to get a video of Pepper, and we're going to use little Pepper to advertise when your podcast releases.
That would be great. She would love that.
Because you can't, like, unless you really meet her or hear her, I'm not going to do her justice trying to describe her. I always, whenever you guys have left our house, both Andy and I are like, is there a cuter kid on the planet than little Pepper? She's so adorable.
She makes YouTube videos now.
No, she doesn't.
I haven't, like, put up her channel yet, but we have a video camera for her, and she literally says, Mom, Dad, can I get out my tripod and my camera? And she does, like, Play-Doh videos.
Ashlee, you need to put these live.
I need to edit them.
Okay, the timer has started because when this thing comes out, we need to advertise Pepper's YouTube channel. My kids will totally follow her. They love YouTube channels.
Okay, perfect. So. She always says, subscribe if you like. She watches YouTube videos and they say that on there.
She's 3 years old. Oh, my word. I love that kid.
Yes.
Oh, so tell me, we'll get a couple of questions. I know we've had some heavy conversation, but... For women listening right now, you mentioned your season. Your husband is working a retail job. You're still doing like church plant ministry, which anyone who said any connection to that knows that is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Like, absolutely. Hours that aren't the typical 9 to 5, and that's my church job. Mm-hmm. And then you're a stay-at-home mom, but you're also very involved in the church plant as well. So what is a day in a life for you look like? Let's talk about a weekday with your kids. What does it look like in Ashlee's life?
Yeah. Okay. I guess Cash is so little right now. I'm still like, I felt like I got into a phase of me and Pepper, like we were kind of in a routine of, we would do grocery shopping and, you know, your house stuff and cleaning, and then I still had time to like work like a couple hours. In Oklahoma, I did like a couple of like side things where I would help teachers or things like that, some online stuff. But now with Cash, I feel like he needs my attention a lot more, and so I don't have as much time to do extra work, and he's just now walking and getting into things, and so that's been a lot of extra stuff. But generally, like we go to the park and we meet people some days, and then they take naps, and so they'll nap in the afternoon. And that's about the time where I'll try to, right now we're working on like a serve day coming up in July. And so I've been calling some places in Arlington to see if we can be involved in their community and in their niche and their environment, and come and like pull weeds or, you know, do anything like that for our serve day. And then there's one day a week we have a team meeting with our pastor and his wife.
So you do church work during nap time?
Yeah, I try to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Some days if it doesn't get to be nap time, the next day I do it probably like maybe at night when Jared's there. I feel like it was a lot easier when I just had Pepper. Now that I have two, it's been a lot harder to really nail down a time.
You are not alone in that. Let me tell you. Yes. I see you attend, like, I don't know if it's just me. It is not just you.
Thank you.
Second kids throw off the balance. And we loved them. Obviously, everybody loves the second, third, whatever. But from 1 to 2 kids is a major transition.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah, I absolutely went through the same thing where I'm like, it was only one more. Why do I feel like everything's changed?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I hear people that have more than 2 and they're doing great, so I'm like, what's going on? Like, I need to figure this out a little easier.
I think you just get numb.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. What's another one after 2? I'm like, okay.
And they start getting old enough, though, that the kids are helping with the kids. Right now, you got both. So you don't have any bigger ones, taking care of the little ones.
That's true.
You got to cut yourself some slack. Or have 12 more kids to care for your other ones.
I think I'll take the first one. I'll cut myself some slack.
Let's go down that
road. Seems a lot easier.
So in the midst of all of that, then, what does it look like for you just caring for yourself spiritually and growing? Do you have ways that, like, are your favorite ways to really spend time with God and invest in your own spiritual walk?
Yeah, I listen to podcasts a lot. I listen to Hey Girl, of course. I try to listen to my Church Back Home's podcast a lot. I feel like as a mom that's easy because you can just put it on. You sometimes don't catch everything, but you're getting something.
Yeah.
And then worship music I have to put on. I feel like that uplifts my spirit as a mom. Some days I don't turn any on and I notice I'm getting angry faster, frustrated faster at my kids. They're more like irritants that day instead of like an addition to my life.
Yeah.
And so I turn on worship music. Right now, Jared and I have started the Daniel fast. We just started it at the beginning of June.
I've heard of this.
The Daniel fast.
Yeah.
We were glad we did it like this. We like started prepping in May. Like, all right, let's get our brain around this and start learning and thinking about it. And then we started it in June. And this is the first time we've ever done a fast together or like something spiritual together, like reading together every morning.
Yeah.
And we'd wake up extra early because he used to be at work at 6. And so...
Oh, wow.
That's not a normal. Like, we literally just started that in June.
I was like, you're a really good wife.
No. We just started this in June. Before that, I would find nap time to read.
Right.
It wouldn't be every day. It was maybe twice or 3 times a week. And it would be like a scripture or 2, and I'd write it in my journal. And maybe later that day, I would go back over it and see like how that helped me that day. Or read my Jesus Calling for the day.
Yeah.
And that would be like my dose, to get me through.
Yeah.
But since we've started the Daniel fast, I've noticed like God really coming in and changing like the way I think about the Bible and just making extra time for him. Like even if it's just talking more to him out loud while I'm cleaning the dishes, and praying out loud. And I'm really starting to understand more of the relationship between me and God instead of just coming to him when I need something.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm learning to take care of myself spiritually. It's definitely a process because I didn't used to think of it that way, not even like 6 months ago.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love that. I love that you guys are doing this too, even if it for a season or whatever, just trying something together, and even if it involves waking up at the crack of dawn. So
yes, that's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. At least bodies do eventually adjust.
That's what I hear.
Yeah,
it hasn't happened yet.
Takes a while. So, in all the heavy we've talked about, I'm going to bring us to our final question, which is the most superficial thing about ourselves.
Yes.
And so maybe you've had time to think about it. You didn't have a lot of time.
I know.
But can you think off the top of your head, Ashlee, what is the most superficial thing about you?
I knew that you might ask that. I was asking Jared before we came here.
Oh, that's dangerous.
The only thing that I can think of, literally, and I'm not even sure if I should say this.
If you're not sure, you probably should. Or shouldn't. I don't know how that goes.
I can only think of the only time I've heard it, and it was when I was with my brother. And so my brother's 4 years older than me, I mentioned. We are black and white. Like, we're totally different. I'm super outgoing, will talk to a stranger, never have, like, a censor over my mouth. I'll say anything.
Yeah.
And he's the opposite, like, artsy, reserved. He's super funny, but I'm definitely more outgoing. And so I think we were somewhere like the fair or something, and I said something about someone's appearance, and my brother was like, "Man, Ash, you are so shallow." And I was like, am I really? Like, I thought everyone thinks of people's appearances, like, especially when you're at the fair. Like, you see
Is that like a big...
In Oklahoma, like, going to the fair is one of my main staples. Like, you have to go every year. And me and my mom always go, 1, to get a corn dog.
Yeah.
2, to get cheese curds. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it's not.
And 3, to judge people.
And 3, to look at people. And it's not just like I don't love them and God loves them. We're talking about superficial things here. But that's the only thing I can think of. Like, not that I was making fun of the guy. I was just pointing out, like, what was going on in his outfit. I can't even remember specifically. But they, like, wear these crazy fuzzy hats.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen those too. Maybe I'm shallow sometimes. Like, maybe that really comes out.
I think we're all shallow at some points, but I feel like that has to be common, if for no other reason than that there is a website that exists called The People of Walmart.
Yes, that's true. I've seen that video.
So you were clearly not the only one.
Okay, good.
Because I think we don't necessarily have as many fairs and things as you would in Oklahoma. But I feel like that's why we go to Walmart, to, like, people watch all of the interesting individuals that shop at Walmart.
Yes.
So if there's a whole website out there, then, girl, you are not alone.
Okay, good. Good. Just making sure.
Yes. You need to feel very supported in your superficiality.
Yes.
Well, Ashlee, thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for just being so honest and vulnerable, being willing to share your story. And, yeah,
Thank you.
I'm excited because I know this is going to mean a lot to our listeners. So.
Good, thank you. I appreciate it, really.
All right, girls. That was my friend Ashlee Hogue. What an incredible story. And I am just so grateful for her courage and what she shared today. I knew a tiny bit about her going into this, but just had no idea all that was part of her life and her journey. And as we got into it and she began to share, I was speechless. Just the incredible power of the work that God's done in her life. The courage in that moment. Women, I am telling you right now that there is power in vulnerability, because when she opened up and just kind of laid it all out there, there was just this incredible sense in that room of like friendship to a whole new level, and also just how God used hearing her story to stir my heart towards him and to be able to see the work that he's done in that. And I just hope as you listened that God also stirred in your heart. And, you know, I never know all of the people who listen to this podcast, but I think there's probably a pretty good chance that there are going to be women who can relate to her story, that on some level maybe you have faced some of what Ashlee faced, whether it be abuse from someone in your family or something in your past, that maybe like her, you've been freed from that you have spoken it, you've received help and counseling or whatever you need. But in the chance that there's a girl listening that maybe this is something you're still carrying and you've never spoken about it or gotten help, I just want to encourage you to find somebody to share your story, to speak your truth, and to seek and find the help that you need. Because if Ashlee's story is a testimony at all, just the power of what God is able to do when you have the courage to speak these things into the light. And so, ladies, I just hope hearing the story, whether you relate to it or not on that side, that just as I was, you were encouraged by everything and just encouraged by her courage. And so today, as we get ready to head into another week, I want to thank you again for giving us your time this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all of you who continue to just send feedback and your messages, the reviews, and all you're just sharing these stories. You are the reason that we're able to do this, and we are so, so thankful for you. So ladies, have an incredible week, and until next week, I want to encourage you to continue to run your race in your place. Bye, girls.